Welcome back to the Athlete Hackers Podcast. My name's Chris Schrade.
And I'm Mark Spellman. Ah!
And we have no particular where to go on this podcast.
I like it.
This is the free-for-all.
I like it. We're just going to talk.
Podcasts ago, we were talking about The Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls documentary, a.k.a. the Michael Jordan documentary. But I think the episode, I think it was episode 2 or 3. It was like 88, 89 season when the Bulls kept getting beat up by the Pistons. You know, they lost in the Eastern Conference playoffs 2 years in a row to them. And the final year, I think it was 89. It was 89 or 90. But they show how literally the next day, the Bulls all committed, every single one of them, to not taking vacations, but going back and getting on it. And in particular, they highlighted that they all started doing a strength and conditioning program, mostly driven by Jordan. But Jordan, up to that point in his life, you know, he had a pretty good physique then, you know, being a top athlete and being able to perform incredible feats. But that was all just from playing basketball and maybe some other sports here and there. But he never really had a strength and conditioning program up to that point. They started getting on it that season. Everyone bulked up, got stronger. Pistons still dirty as ever. Lambeer, pre-Bulls Rodman, John Sally, all trying to beat up Jordan. But they ended up sweeping them in the series the next year.
Well, and I think it's one of those things that
strength and conditioning.
Jerry Krause, you know, he's infamous for saying that players don't win championships, teams win championships. And what he meant by that is, you know, yes, you need to have very good players to win championships, but there's also people behind the scenes.
As long as it doesn't break the bank for him.
Well, but also, I mean, you had their strength coach at the time was Al Vermeil. And fun fact about Coach Vermeil, he's the only strength coach to win NBA championship and NFL Super Bowls.
Wow, cool. Who was he with at the NFL?
That I gotta look up, which I will look up. But you know, he's done pretty good for himself. He's still around, still kicking. He's given back a lot to the profession, and you know, Dick Vermeil's brother.
I loved seeing the old school plates again, just metal on metal.
Yeah, I mean, no, they didn't have any. Al Vermeil is the only strength coach to have world championship rings in both the NFL and NBA. He's the only strength coach who has been in the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. So, doesn't tell me the football team, but you know, I'm sure.
Is he retired?
Yes. It's pretty cool. I mean, I did not know that he was Dick Vermeil's brother, so that's pretty cool.
I bet that's some experience there, being able to go cross over into all those different sports.
Yeah, I mean, you know, once again, you know, training's training. You know, you gotta get them stronger. You gotta overload the muscle. Yeah, undulating periodization, daily undulating periodization. You got to find out what works best for the athlete so they can be the best that they can be. And we've said that multiple times on our podcast.
You know what really struck me about watching this is I was a Bulls fan. Like, I remember watching all these games that they had on. I remember, you know, do you remember seeing the play that Jordan made? I think it was in the 1990 against the Pistons, where he came down the middle and he had the ball in his right hand and he came around all the way underneath and went up and made the bank shot with his left hand. You remember seeing that one? They showed that highlight. It's one of the Jordan moves that they show constantly. There was
that one, the one that he did it against the Lakers too in the finals, where he was coming down the lane and he was going up with his right, and Sam Perkins came over, or James Worthy, and he moved it to his
He
left.
just hung there. Yeah. I saw that, and I went out during commercial and practiced that over and over and over again. There was no need for that move in the Pistons game. He just did it because he could, and it was the wrong thing to practice for a 12-year-old at that time. Should have
Yeah,
been.
but once again, how many times has he done that move?
Yeah, I mean, he probably created it in the air. He probably hasn't done it. That's the thing. He's done so many. He's practiced so many times. He has the physical ability to do it that he can create things. When you get to that level, you just create things.
Well, and that's what a lot of people, I think we've hammered this point home. The part of repetition and practice and practice and practice, so that when you get in a competitive situation, it becomes automatic. You're not thinking about it, because if you're thinking about it, it's going to be too slow. I think in one of these episodes, I referred to, Derek Jeter. Everybody can remember Derek Jeter going to his right, backhanding the ball, jumping in the air, and throwing it to first base. Well, he didn't think about doing that. He saw the ball he saw the ball got hit. I have to go get it, and I've got to throw it to first base.
Yeah, it's instinctual at that point. But
exactly.
You have that instinct because your body's been through so many different other situations that are similar, and it becomes feeling at that point. And that's where the creativity comes from.
Well, it becomes automatic.
Yeah, and you can feel what the next steps are going to be given your body position and what's happening, and you can create new things off that. But so these guys were my idols, and it's weird sitting there and watching them because I'm older than them now, and back then you're looking up to them, thinking these people are gods, and now I'm watching this, and they're kids. It's such a weird thing. They're 26 years old. I'm 42. They're kids. They're barely out of their teenage years. And it's just a weird feeling to see that and see it from a different perspective.
But I think it's also fun for the generation that never got to see these guys play.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the NBA is not the same.
No, all last week they were talking, what would Mike do what would Jordan do if he got to play in this NBA? And they all kind of agreed he'd average 40. He'd average 40 points a game. He'd be like James Harden. But someone who could also play defense.
Yeah, but he would also that kind of a guy like that knows the game. He also might have gone to another team with another management in place, or influenced the current management to build a team. And that's just not the NBA anymore. The reason Jordan won his first championship was because they finally got a team, and the other five was a team effort. He had to step down. He didn't score as many points, but other stats went up. He got more assists. He did other things. The pressure on the defense to not have to cover one person because you had other people that could score now made a difference in them winning, because you're confusing the other team. If it's just Jordan that's scoring on the other team, that's all you have to cover. So
to your point, that was the importance of Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr, John Paxson, B.J. Armstrong, Bill Winnington, Luke Longley, Tony Kukoc. You had some above average players on that team that people seem to forget about. John Paxson and Steve Kerr, they both hit game-winning shots in NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Rodman came in. They kind of started Scottie Pippen arguably was the second best player in the world.
Yeah.
And then they brought in Tony Kukoc, who was the best European player. And you had Dennis Rodman,
the best utility man in the game.
What?
The best utility man in the game.
Yeah,
defense, rebounds, fighting. You can't teach that stuff. That stuff is ingrained. Either it's there or it's not.
Well, and I think, Dennis realized he wasn't going to be the scorer. So how do I? And I tell young basketball players this: you want to get on the court, rebound, and play defense. Don't worry about the scoring. Somebody's going to score.
Yeah.
But if you play defense, if you can lock down 3 out of the 5 positions and you can rebound the ball, you'll be on the floor. I don't care. I don't care who the coach is.
Yeah. When I was coaching, when I do coach, every year when I start off, I go through my 4 columns of basketball success. And they're little kids, so I have to explain what a column is and how it holds things up. But the first is physical fitness. If you're not in shape, if you can't take punishment, if you can't out endure your opponent, you're going to lose. And all the other skills will fall down around that. So physical fitness is the number 1 column.
Fatigue makes cowards of us all.
Yeah. And these are in order of importance. The second is defense, right? I heard an argument the other day, there's the old analogy that defense wins championships, offense wins games, defense wins championships. And someone made the argument that that's BS. You can't win anything if you don't score. And I can partially accept that argument, but I've been on teams that have won because we were such a good defensive team. And what I tell the kids, I ask them, I give them an easy question, and they know this. I say, if you hold the other team to 0 points, how many points do you have to score to win? That's 1. They all get that. So defense is the second. Ball control from 2 different angles is the third. And that is getting possession of the ball when you don't have it. Okay, so rebounds, loose balls, diving, making sacrifices, fighting for the ball, whether in offense or defense, so the other team doesn't get it. There's ball control from that angle. And all of those things that I just mentioned don't take hardly any skill. To your point, anyone can play basketball if you do all those three things correctly. And I think that's Rodman's wheelhouse. Certainly he's a great athlete and he could do other things, and you have to if you're in the NBA. But for anyone to play, those 3 things, anyone can do. The other part of ball control was keeping control of the ball, ball handling, catching passes, dribbling, and that takes skill work. And then the 4th pillar is offense, shooting, layups, post moves. Those are the 4 pillars in order that I give them. But, you could see how important Rodman is based off of that.
Well, and I think what people see all the nonsense, dressing up in a wedding dress and, dressing in drag, but they don't see the fact that, I believe after every game, he would stay an hour to 2 hours after the game and do a workout, and he would put in his time. Yes, he would go out and get after it and party probably too much, seeing that he's been in rehab several times. But at the same point, he would put in the work. And, when he got to Chicago, he understood who the alpha was in the locker room. And I think everybody understood who the alpha was in the locker room, and when the leader of the team is not only the best player, but the hardest worker, and we touched on this a couple episodes, when a team is led by the players and not the coaches, they're going to be a successful team. And getting back to that, during a preseason, the best player on the team that year was Derek Needham. He's playing professionally in Montenegro. And I took him aside and I was like, Derek, during preseason, I'm going to yell at you probably a lot because the other players need to understand that not giving me 100% effort is not acceptable. Even though you're winning the sprints and you're winning the drills and you know, you're doing the best. I'm still going to get after you so the other players understand that 80% isn't acceptable. Um, and he took it and he understood, but I pulled him aside to let him know what was going to happen. That I was going to, really lean on him to become a leader for the team. And he took it and he's a professional now. I mean, so I don't know how many five. I mean, he'll say he's 6 feet, but if he's 6 feet, I'm 6'6". Um, but it's one of those things. You need to understand the dynamics of the team and who you can do that to and who you can't do that to,
Yeah.
and who is going to become the leader of the team. I mean, I don't think there's been a successful team or a championship team that hasn't been player led. I mean, because at the end of the day, the coach doesn't play.
Yeah.
I mean, the coach calls plays, but once again, the players actually put the play into fruition.
I think I saw this on Facebook. I think you might have posted it, but Gino Arturomo, there's a video of him talking to his players, and he said, the difference between a regular player and a team of elite players is me as a coach. I don't have to coach energy.
Yeah, like
You don't have to motivate them. They're already self-motivated. They know what to do, and the coach is just there to implement strategy, but the players have to execute it.
well, and I would think most people would agree that Gino's been pretty successful in his career at UConn.
Mm-hmm. Very,
but
very.
once again, he sits down with his players and he asks them what they want, and usually the response is, "I want to be the best I can be," and he's like, "Okay, all right, I'm gonna do that." But you have to understand that there's a process to that, and there's gonna be days where I'm gonna MF you up and down the court because
That's not every day.
not every day, but probably. I mean, maybe depending on the person. I mean, I would say if you ask Coach Oriema, I would say he probably coached Maya more different than he coached Brown and Stewart, than he coached down at Tarazi, than he coached,
I'm just going back to my basketball career. I think I get yelled at every day.
Well, once again,
deservedly so.
But you could probably, I mean, there are probably some players on your team that if they got yelled at every day, they weren't gonna perform. I mean, once again, I tell my children this all the time: listen to the message, not how the message is being delivered.
Yeah.
And I always told the athletes, the day I let you get away with, not finishing a sprint, not completing all the reps, not doing the things that I'm telling you to do, the day that I don't call you out on you doing that is the day I've given up on you.
Yeah. The when the coach is not paying attention to you anymore, that's when there's issues.
Yeah. When the coach is basically gone, I've done everything I can and you're not listening anymore, or you've given up, or you've decided that whatever you want to do is more important than what the team wants to do, then I mean you're kind of lost. I mean, and it's kind of hard. I can think back. I think in all my years, I've had one athlete like that, and she was the best lacrosse player on the team. Probably could have been an All-American at Fairfield. But she didn't get it. Like, she didn't understand, like, there was more to the team than just herself. And, she wound up doing a 5th year, I believe, at Georgetown. And, you go from Fairfield and you're the best player at Fairfield. And then you go to Georgetown and you might not be the best player at Georgetown anymore. So you go from being the big fish in a little pond to just another fish in a huge ocean.
Yeah.
And, I wish, it's one of those things that I wish I could have connected better with her. But it just was one of those things that, it's one of those things that I look back and she was really hard to reach. And I wasn't the only person in the athletic department that had a hard time reaching her. But, she helped the team win. She scored goals. She's all-time, I believe she still holds the record for all-time goal scorer at Fairfield, and she probably has the most points for women's lacrosse as well.
Let's. I'm gonna switch topics.
Okay.
Midstream here. For our listeners or parents that are college age kids, seniors in high school going to college or current college athletes, you listen to, for instance, MMA. You got these professional fighters. They're training 6 days a week, 6 hours, right? When they're in their fight camps, getting ready for a camp. That's 6 to 8 weeks out. How long should a college athlete be training for preseason?
Well, that's funny because, obviously, I've talked with a bunch of strength coaches and listened to a bunch of webinars over the last 6, 7 weeks, and they're all having issues with what do we do when the athletes come back. And here's first and foremost, they all need to understand that all the athletes are starting at ground zero or -1. And if they think their athletes have done what they've asked them to do, great, you have a good culture, and they're still trying to get after it, but they need to take their time and they need to slow cook these athletes.
Assess them.
They need to assess them. I think the important thing that's really going to happen, there has to be an open dialogue of communication between the head coach, the strength and conditioning coach, and the medical staff. And the coach has to hear what the support staff is saying. Right now for college basketball at the Division I level, in the summertime, they get 4 hours on the court and 4 hours with the strength and conditioning coach.
Wow.
When I
so
first
they're doing 8 hours a day?
8 hours a week.
Oh, 8 hours a week. Okay.
8 hours a week. That can be required.
Some reason that doesn't seem like enough.
See, I would say it's too much. I would say I would say the breakup is wrong.
Okay.
When I first started, it was 8 hours with the strength and conditioning coach and no structured coaching, no required stuff on court. It was just pickup. Now, during the pickup, coach would probably walk by during pickup, maybe stop, watch a little bit. Or the court's right below their office in their basketball only facility. I think most basketball only facilities at the major Division I level. I'd be shocked if the basketball court was not directly below the head coach's office. So they went from 8 and 0. So there was 8 hours of strength and conditioning. So 8 hours broken up into weight room, conditioning, agility drills. However I wanted to break it up.
We're still talking. We're talking out of season right now.
Yeah, we're talking summertime. Like I would see the guys every day.
Yep.
For at least an hour.
All right. Let me ask you this. In season, how many hours a week did you get them?
In season, they had 20 hours that they had of anything dealing with basketball added up to 20 hours, and that was including games.
Okay. So, all right. So that being said,
I would want to see him at least twice.
That being said, though, how do we justify going from 8 hours postseason and training right into 20? Shouldn't you be, just playing devil's advocate here, shouldn't your body be at least ready to handle that or more?
Well, that's the job. The job is getting them ready for the season and making.
So getting them ready for the 20 hours a week in that small time allotment, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I mean, your conditioning needs to get them ready. I mean, I think any coach that's having a practice longer than 2 hours, I think that's insane. I mean, I ideally I'd like the coach to do a practice in 90 minutes. Obviously, there's going to be days that they have to spend more time, but it's making sure that they're sitting down with the coach and making sure that on their high intensity days on the court, then I'm balancing it with a high intensity in the weight room. So if they're going low on the court, I can't be going high in the weight room. If they're going high on the court, I can't be going low in the weight room because I need their body to recover. So it's got to kind of match up.
All right. So then the 8 hours compared to the 20 hours, it's not really apples to apples because
Nah,
during the summer you're doing 8 intense hours, and then the 20 hours are, not every practice is intense because you're walking through situational stuff on the court. You're not running the whole time.
yeah, I mean, there's probably people on the team that they're probably not getting their heart rate up above 75% of their max in a practice because they're not doing the drills.
Yeah.
I mean, the first five guys are getting their reps in. That's just the reality of it. They have to get their reps in because they're the ones that are going to be playing. And part of the job is to make sure that, once again, the main thing that I've really realized with talking with all these coaches is that there has to be an open line of communication, and there has to be a relationship there with the coaching staff and the strength and conditioning and medical staff, and the word no has to be able to be said by both sides.
Hmm.
Like, hey, Mark, we got to do this today. It doesn't make sense to do that, but also to explain why it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, most head coaches are head coaches because they've busted their butt to get where they're at, and hearing the word no from a support staff usually might not jive with them.
Yeah,
But
but it's a team, though. You got to rely on the people that are around you and their expertise.
yes, but it's also my job to understand what the coach wants and what he needs from his players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of strength coaches lose sight of that. Once again, the main thing is the main thing. They're there to play basketball. They're not there to lift weights or run. So whatever I do as far as training better support the mission of the basketball coach, lacrosse coach, soccer coach, whatever coach I'm working with, whatever I'm doing with their players better support what they're trying to do. Because if they're not at their best day one of practice, if they're not ready to go full bore day one of practice, I did not do my job. I mean, I listened to Jeremy Hefner, who's the women's basketball strength coach at Baylor. Pretty good team.
Yeah.
Won a couple championships. Head coaches going into the Hall of Fame. And he was like, the last week of preseason, like the last day of preseason, we played games because he needed the next day was the first day of practice. He needed the ladies to feel good and have smiles on their face. Because Coach McCulkey was going to make sure that first day of practice was hard.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean,
The men were doing pretty good this year. Too bad we never got to see how they would have made out.
it would have been. I'm acquaintances with both Charlie and Jeremy, so they have a strength coach for the men and they have a strength coach for the women. And
They're a big team too. They're a big, strong team, the Baylor men
yeah,
this year.
and one of the reasons, I met Charlie at the basketball symposium in Vegas. Shout out to Charles Stevenson, strength coach at Utah, who puts it on. It's free this year. It's virtual, so that's going to be fun.
Cool.
And we'll get more information about that stuff. But he was doing like primal movements with his basketball players, like the Hanasaka Natural.
Yep.
He was doing that back in the like 2008.
That's great. That's when I first saw it.
Well, I mean, so like that piqued my interest right away. I was like, he's having these guys crawl and move like animals in the weight room. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I gotta talk to that guy. But when you look at it, if you have a 6'9" guy and he can crawl like a leopard and he can move like, a gorilla, he's probably going to be pretty good playing basketball.
Yeah.
Once again, when you see a lion or a gorilla get up a tree in like four movements, if a human could do that, we'd all be amazed.
Yeah. We're lazy compared to African animals.
Well, I mean, we're also bipedal.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's leave it there. That was a good one. We should do more of these free for alls.
I like free for all.
It's going to be a basketball themed one for sure, though.
Yeah, I mean, we gave people a lot of hoops.
Oh yeah.
So I mean.
All right, everyone. Thanks for turning in. Catch us on the next one.
And I think coming up soon, we're gonna have some guests coming in to speak.
We're gonna have a lot of guests coming up for sure.
So keep your ears open. Also, to the people that have been listening, if there's a topic that you want us to talk about or dive a little deeper into so we can help you out, let us know.
Catch you on the next one.
All my best. God bless. Stay safe. Peace out.